Senator McConnell's speech Saturday, I don't think is widely shared view of President Trump by most Republicans. President Trump is the most consequential Republican in the party. If Mitch McConnell doesn't understand that, he's missing a lot. You are the hope of the future of conservatism, President Trump, but we got to make some changes to get back to White House in 2024.
Lindsey Graham again there dipping the knee to Donald Trump and taking down his majority leader in the process, Mitch McConnell. Graham, he's referencing McConnell's words on the Senate floor on Saturday after he voted to acquit Trump during the impeachment trial, but still make it clear where blame lied.
There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. The people who stormed this building believed they were acting on the wishes and instructions of their president.
Predictably, the president responded. Late yesterday, Trump attacked McConnell, and I read now a portion of Trump's statement. The Republican Party said never again will be respected or strong with political leaders like Senator Mitch McConnell at its helm. Mitch is a dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack, and if Republican senators are going to stay with him, they will not win again. He goes on, it was a complete election disaster in Georgia and certain other swing states. McConnell did nothing and will never do what needs to be done in order to secure a fair and a just electoral system into the future. He doesn't have what it takes, never did, never will. Now, as McConnell and many fellow Republicans are struggling to move on, many want to, more than 100 members of the GOP recently, they held a call to discuss forming possibly a breakaway party that would be center-right with nothing to do with Donald Trump. My next guest, he was on that call, John Mitnick. John's a former associate counsel to President George W. Bush. He was also general counsel for the Homeland Security Department under President Trump. John, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on, Richard.
You know, I know it's not fair because none of us know the answer, only McConnell does, but do you think down deep McConnell, in seeing how this is played out, has second thoughts about crossing as publicly as he did Trump? Or do you think, knowing what he knows, he wished he round up 10 more votes here to, as they say, if you're going to go after the king, you better kill the king. Do you think he regretted not getting 17 Republicans to vote for impeachment?
Well, Richard, it's impossible for me to know what precisely is in Leader McConnell's mind as far as that goes. But I think that his statement about Donald Trump's culpability for inciting the attack on the U.S. Capitol and on our constitutional order on January 6, 2021 was absolutely correct. I wish that he had voted to convict, as 7 of his colleagues did on the Republican side in the impeachment trial. But I think he is on the right track in terms of distancing himself from Donald Trump. I also have to agree with the statement that Senator Graham made, that Donald Trump is in fact the de facto leader of the Republican Party. And that is precisely the problem. And that is what has been driving the principled conservatives, if you will, to have that new conservative summit meeting on Friday, February 5th, and to seek a new direction. And
I want to talk about that group, but I have been wrong so many times, John, over the last 4+ years, thinking that this was going to be the moment, especially for the Reagan Republicans that I grew up with, who there were lines that couldn't be crossed. Trump didn't tiptoe. He leapfrogged over these lines, and still it never mattered. I wonder what it will take to break the fever, not for folks like yourself or that were on that call, because you've long since lost faith, but, for example, if it comes out that Trump openly disdained the very supporters that would line up for him, wanting nothing to do with him, if it came out that, as I believe it will, and I've talked this hour both financially and legally here, some of the uncomfortable answers are going to come out about, you know, how much of a fraud in many ways Trump was throughout his professional life, or that, you know, Trump really was on that call with McCarthy where he said, basically, you got what you deserved as the rioters were rampaging and his own vice president was under attack. Can you see anything that will break the fever for his base?
So I think a lot of Republicans, some are currently still Republicans, some are former Republicans, were pushed away from the party prior to January 6th, long prior, in my case and in the case of many other people. I think there's another group who actually voted for Donald Trump on November 3rd, 2020, but after January 6th, finally saw the light, if you will, and the fever was broken, as you put it. And at this point, it's hard to imagine anything that could come out about Donald Trump or anything that he could do that would push many more people out of the party. I do believe that there is a sizable number of Republicans, maybe as many as a quarter of people who identify as Republicans who are interested in, who don't identify with the party anymore, who feel that they're politically homeless. And what's more, there was a Gallup poll in which 62% of U.S. adults agreed that the parties, the two major parties, do such a poor job of representing the American people that a third party is needed. And that poll also discovered that fully 50% of U.S. adults now identify as independents. So if there were ever a time to start a new party, and we believe that the best approach is a new center-right party, now is the time.
You know, John, in fact, we brought that Gallup poll that there seems to be an appetite here for a third way, if you will. But I looked at polling, and we did this last night, which shocked me, which showed even Republicans who moved away from Trump after the January 6th riots, so many moved back, in recent weeks, even as more evidence came out showing his complicity. The mistake that I've made is thinking that this base was a fraction of a fraction, but you look at the numbers in every polling, irrespective of the one we just went over that you referenced from Gallup, shows that the base is the party right now. How disconcerting is that?
So, as has been reported, the New Conservative Summit on February 5th considered several options. One is starting a new party. Another option is starting a new faction or caucus, if you will, that could operate either within the GOP or outside the GOP. And what you just said is the case for a new party, because as difficult as it is to start a new party with ballot access issues and everything else, our chances of retaking the Republican Party at this point, at the present time, are low, and so that makes the case, if you will, for a new party. But we haven't decided on this. There is a robust dialogue going on among all of the members of the Center-Right Alliance, which is what we're calling the group now, and it goes on day and night. We have our own listserv, and people are exchanging views. We've seen the results of Trump and Trumpism. That's the loss of the House majority in 2018, the loss of the Senate majority in 2020, and the loss of the White House in 2020. Trump and Trumpism are a recipe for permanent minority status for the Republican Party. The only solution is a new direction.
The most compelling part of the argument, beyond the principled one, and I always say to people, if Ronald Reagan, who will be held up for conventions till the end of time as the patron saint of the Republican Party, if he came back and he looked at what went on the last 4 years, he wouldn't recognize the Republican Party, let alone abide by some of the things that were coming out of the Oval. That said, I would just remind folks, this way didn't work. Forget losing the White House. Look what happened in Georgia. As much as Trump wants to blame McConnell, that was on Trump. And look what happened in the Senate. So my point is, it's not only distasteful and divisive and against the national interest, it's not winning elections. And you're going to get the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world that have become the new face of the Republican Party. So I think that's the most compelling argument beyond just the civics portion of it.
I was not looking for an escape hatch from the Republican Party. I've been a Republican all my adult life. You mentioned Ronald Reagan. That was my first presidential election when I was of age to vote, and I supported him as a freshman at Emory University in 1980 when I was 18. I'm a lifelong conservative, and in fact, I was the first general counsel of the Heritage Foundation, which is a conservative think tank here in Washington, D.C. So I wasn't looking to jump ship from the Republican Party. I was pushed out. A lot of other people feel the same way and are equally politically homeless. And we want to save the party of Lincoln and Reagan. just like Ben Sass wants to save it, just like Liz Cheney wants to save it, and other Republican elected officials. Our desire is not to destroy it. Our desire is to save it. But the question is, what is the best way to save it? And right now, in my opinion, the best way to save it is to form a group, whatever form the group takes is to be decided, but then exert influence as a united bloc. That's the way to do it at this point, because we have to take the party back from the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and others who you mentioned.
Well, I can't agree more that this is overdue and certainly needed. John Mitnick, I appreciate the time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Richard. I appreciate it.
All right, when we come back, we'll stay with politics, but in a different vein. President Biden, he took questions last night from the public, and in doing so, showed us just how different he is from the guy he replaced in the White House.